Hello and welcome to SHEnanigans, the show where we really look at women in the community and tell their stories, because history tends to be who's profiled, and we know that women's voices in history are woefully underrepresented. And today I'm going to be talking to the fabulous Amy Nickerson, career transition coach. Welcome, Amy. Thank you so much for joining me for this chat today.
Thank you, Lisa. It's an honor to be invited.
I don't know. We'll see at the end of it if you still think that way. But I think, you and I have just been chatting, and it's really important to amplify women's voices and give them a place in history. And we were just talking about this whole thing of genealogy. I love genealogy. I'm a historian, and I get really upset when I'm going to look somebody up and all I see is wife of or Mrs. Mm-hmm. And you have an interesting story about that as well, don't you?
I do. And I've been always interested in my family lineage. Both of my mother's parents came to the U.S. from Finland. Mm-hmm. And when I have tried to track down family records, and they're very sparse, as you might imagine, in some of the more remote parts mm-hmm. of Finland. But it's very interesting because my grandfather's lineage is clearly marked out. His mm-hmm. parents, his siblings, his children. Mm-hmm. But when all that you find for my grandmother is wife of, mm-hmm. and then it's this big black hole. Mm-hmm. So I too am fascinated by the lack of women mm-hmm. who get mentioned mm-hmm. In these discussions about family history, particularly when you get out of the U.S., and you start going back to the old country.
Yeah, absolutely. Back in Finland, is there custom to change your name when you get married, to take
yes.
the man's name? Okay,
yeah.
So it's like here, so it's a double
yeah.
challenge, because
mm-hmm.
if you don't know the maiden name, you
yeah.
kind of get stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons that I really love that the New York Times started doing that obituary series of women who weren't mentioned or were forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Slowly we're getting there.
Baby steps.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about your story
okay.
and how you got to what you're doing. So explain to us a little bit of what exactly you're doing now.
Okay. So what I'm doing right now is that I'm a career transition coach. Mm-hmm. And I make that distinction because I'm not so much about helping people get their next job. What I really can be excited about is helping people move from, well, I think I want to do something different, or it's very clear I want to do something different, or I'm just really burned out and I have to do something different. Mm-hmm. And so it's the process. I really like working on the process from knowing that it's time to do something different, but like so many people in that space, they have no idea where to begin, how to narrow down what it is that they think they want to do. Mm-hmm. And so I just work with people in a stepwise process mm-hmm. to help them get some clarity on what it is that they'd like to do. The other thing that I do, and this is a work in process right now, I would say, is that recognizing yet another career transition, that space between retiring from what a person has done for years, decades, quarter centuries perhaps, mm-hmm. and like myself, when it came time to retire from mm-hmm. full-time work at the University of Vermont, I wasn't ready for that, designation of retired person. Mm-hmm. And so that's yet another huge career transition. It might be the last one for a person, or increasingly, because my generation of baby boomers were just not ready to stop. Mm-hmm. And so I can help people transition into, let's start making a plan before you actually get there. Mm-hmm. Because the number of people who have retired mm-hmm. that I've spoken to as I'm developing this additional aspect of my career transition coaching, the number of people that I've spoken with who say, oh, I wish I had had somebody like you when I was planning to retire or when I did retire, because it's very clear that people without a plan don't thrive to the extent that others do if they have some planning mm-hmm. under their belt when they actually retire. So that's a new segment of the work that I'm doing, but I'm all about people in process.
That's so interesting. And you're right. Like every time we think about, the stages of life, from school and then your career and then retirement, it's more about the financial aspect, right? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready to do everything that you want to do? Not really thinking about what is it that you want to do. And there's this view, and I think for women especially, where we sort of prepare for retirement as like, you're done. You're basically sitting there. Maybe you're still active enough and you can go play pickleball all day or bridge, but you're basically sitting around waiting to die, right? Waiting for the end. So
that sounds horrible.
It really does.
And I'm glad that you brought in that concept, because part of my messaging, and the people who are in this space from a scholarship standpoint as well, is that it's not an end, it's just an evolution. And so some people, I have a friend who is absolutely loving her retired life of no commitments. In fact, it's hard to get her to commit to do much of anything now because she really likes the flexibility of waking up and thinking, what will I do with today?
Yes.
And it's not like she's just sitting at home scrolling through social media. She's not playing pickleball every day. She has a really active network of friends and activities that she's interested in. So for her, I'd call her kind of an outlier, because she doesn't need the plan that a lot of people do.
I think it's, is it as much the plan as feeling like you're still contributing, there's still something worthwhile going on, that you still matter?
Absolutely, and it's all about still having a sense of purpose.
So let's talk about you then. Like you mentioned that, you came to, was it a retire? What prompted your exit from academia, and why not do some of the traditional things? Why start a whole business? That's probably 10 questions in one, but what prompted your exit from academia?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And so at the end of 15 years of full-time faculty work, you're eligible for the retirement benefits. And there's no mystery. I mean, teaching at the university level is a total burnout scene. And so when I was approaching being finished with that, and I wasn't just on faculty, I was also, for 14 of my 15 years at UVM, directing a professional graduate degree program. So on top of the teaching, I was mentoring, advising all of the students, recruiting. I mean, everything was rolled into that responsibility, that huge responsibility. So as the time was approaching for my time at UVM to end, I thought, I'm not sure what I will do next. And I really have to pay tribute to a couple of my former students who really nudged me, and they said, you've been doing career coaching basically for all of this time that you've been directing the graduate program, and so maybe that would be something to explore. Well, so I decided, okay, I'll do just that.
Why not? What could go wrong?
And having been a person who I've had a couple of professional positions over the years, like in state government, I created a position where there had been no one before. And at UVM, when I started there, it was a brand new program, so there had never been anyone in that position before. And so I have a history, a track record of making something from nothing. So I thought, easy peasy, I'll go into career coaching, online career coaching. And my universe was very small initially, because the nature of the professional graduate program was preparing the next generation of registered dietitian nutritionists. They have to earn a graduate degree, they have to complete a supervised practice experience, AKA an internship. And so I said to these two students, okay, I'm going to give it a try. And I kind of lost my train of thought there.
How did you get into coaching, and
Yeah,
what prompted
so it was these students, and it was actually probably 3 students who had nudged me, and I said, okay, I'll do that. And one of the first things that I did in this transition process is that I created an advisory committee. And I think it's really important for people who are in a career transition process or a career change process to have an advisory board or a board of directors. And what's the purpose? Like, what do they do?
For yourself.
For myself,
Yeah.
for my work, for my new role. And I have reflected a lot on what they were doing for me, which was to really, they were my champions. They were the cheerleaders who kept saying, you know, you can do that, and we'll help you with this. And so that was a really important aspect of making the transition from teaching to this career coaching and career transition world. I have to say that I was completely unprepared for the loss of my sense of identity as a professional. All these feelings of, oh, I won't go to that conference anymore because I'm not part of this active group professionally, or I'm not collaborating with colleagues at UVM on one initiative or another. And that really stopped me in my tracks. And so to leave that behind and try and create space for this new venture, it wasn't the aspects, like the nitty-gritty of being a career transition coach. It was more everything that helps you move that forward. I could say social media for one. I could say trying to find a new network. You know, and another thing that's become really clear to me in this journey, which I do want to say that in true entrepreneurial spirit, my path has been a zig and a zag. And I thought I was going in one direction, and then suddenly it became clear, this feels very small, I don't feel like I'm getting any traction, and I need to go off in another direction. Again, in conversation with some of my trusted advisory committee members. And how did that group come together?
I was just going to ask, there's so much to unpack here, but I think it's a really smart idea, because when you start a business, you often have a group of advisors, right? And you entering into solo entrepreneurship really isn't any different. You're starting a business, and to have a sounding board or a mastermind or whatever you want to call it. A mastermind is more like
I like sounding board,
doing it together. But a sounding board to kind of get some perspective, because when you're in it, you're in a tunnel, right? And you cannot see the bigger picture. So what gave you that idea?
I didn't have the idea. It's an idea that I put a name to after the fact. The more I've been reading about how to help people make the transition, because this identity loss and sense of purpose is huge, no matter what stage.
So the two are really tied together, having the sounding board and the
identity, like who am I becoming? And this group, my advisory group, there were four of us, including myself. We had worked on a huge initiative for the UVM graduate program in dietetics. We pivoted the program from on campus to online, which was an enormous task. And the four of us worked tirelessly. We made it fun. We had a lot of long sessions. And part of the evolution of when I left UVM was a sense of, I really like working with these people. And so I just asked them if they would be willing to continue to, you know, stay connected as a group. And then when when this idea was launched about going into the career coaching consulting business, they just naturally started giving me feedback, and I would test ideas with them, and one of them helped me with my website, you know, the initial design of that. So it just kind of happened organically.
Kind of evolved.
And I hadn't really thought about it as an advisory group until reading something recently, and one of the tips was, who's on your board of directors? And I thought, oh my gosh, that's just what this core group was. And I have to say that now, so that was 3 years ago that I entered this space. And we're not connected like we had been. And it's almost like, okay, you're off, you've launched, and I'm in touch with them as individuals, but not collectively as a group.
So what does that mean for you? Does that mean that like you're ready and you're settled in what you're doing, or does that mean you're going to look and there's going to be a new advisory board down the line? What does that look like?
I'd like it to be there's another advisory group down the line. I have a couple of other key people in my life who are soloing their sounding board role. I want to say feedback, but I've read an interesting book about its advice, because advice is looking forward as opposed to feedback. You're looking back, and that's a really interesting distinction that I'm trying to keep in my mind. But without those helpful voices, I probably would be down a rabbit hole that I never should have gone down, because those voices kind of rein
You'd
me
be doing
back
loop-de-loops.
Yeah.
Instead of taking turns.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating. Let's talk a little bit more about this whole identity thing, because I'm really curious about that. Oftentimes, or most of the time, when you ask somebody, who they are or whatever, it's like really interlinked, I can't use my words today, into what they have done in the past. Like, right? It's not like I am a fun-loving person or whatever. It's I am a writer or I am a teacher. How does that fit into this whole concept of transitioning and changing and or not?
It's a really good question. In fact, tomorrow I'm holding a workshop online, and it's all about, protecting your identity during a career transition. And it's a very real phenomenon, because we are, women and men collectively, are all, I'm struggling right now because I'm trying to think of the gender neutral term for women, men, and they, right? And so everybody who's in a career transition, they have a loss of who am I, because you're right, we identify as what we do professionally. In the workshop tomorrow, that's one of the discussion prompts that I'll be having with the group is, who are you beyond your title? Because we forget about all the different selves that we have. Like for me, I'm a mother, I'm a recreational athlete, I'm a mentor, I'm a tutor, I'm a career coach, I'm a retirement planning coach.
You're a Finn.
I'm a Finn. I'm a sailor. I have really tight ties to the coast, so I'm kind of a coastal person. All of those selves make me who I am.
Right.
But when you ask me, well, what do you do? Or who are you? Nobody says, who are you? Let's start there. And I'm trying to less and less ask people what they do, because I think it helps to pigeonhole people, right? And if you are in a transition, you don't know what to say. And so I'm trying to ask instead, what do you love to do? And then that can kind of evolve into all these different selves, the possible different selves. And I think it's a really important question to wrestle with, because as we go from, I'm the senior lecturer at UVM, and I hate that term. I think it should be like seasoned lecturer, but it's the way they rank your
Sport
status.
is the same. When I hit my 40s and I was on a competitive team, we were the seniors. It's like, no.
Or master. Why couldn't we call it master? Like a master lecturer sounds much better than a senior lecturer. But I'm sorry, we're getting off on so many different tangents here. But the idea of who am I without that title? And that starts to hit you in so many different directions. And I remember one conversation that I heard early on as my time at UVM ended, and somebody said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I've just retired from UVM, and it was a conversation stopper. There was nowhere to go, and I thought, not using that term ever again. I might say, I was, and that's another key thing, is to not totally let go of who you identified as, but to not use it to define you still. But the work of letting go of that is huge. Like I said, you think about going to a conference, you think about going to a networking event, and if you're in this middle space of transitioning, like, who are you? Like, who are you?
Yeah.
So I think we all need to come to terms with the fact that we have different selves, and those different selves are a window into what you might want to do next. When you start to really dig into, well, why is it? I mean, if you're a mother, well, it's biology, okay? So there's not a whole lot of deepness there in why you are there. But, you know, if you love to do pottery, for example, if that's one of the things you love to do, and so you would identify as, well, I'm a ceramicist or a potter, what is it about that? And so, well, there's creativity, and, you know, it opens up the door to maybe, because that's another thing that people struggle with is, if I leave this, what do I have for qualifications to go do that? And so identifying transferable skills is another, it's another aspect of the work that I do with people. And oftentimes it's, you know, just getting people to think about, what do they do a lot of? In your job, what do you do frequently? In your life, what do you do frequently? And those are all little indicators of, don't ignore that as you're moving on to the next chapter.
I was just reading something about this whole concept of, you know, following your passion versus following what you're good at. And sometimes the two are really far apart, right? So like, just because you're super passionate about something doesn't mean you're necessarily good. And I also don't like that label of, are you good at it? It sort of feeds into that imposter syndrome, because pretty much anything you can learn and improve at.
Right.
But there's a point where, like, if you're passionate about something, you should have some skills in the thing that you're going to. So how do you reconcile the two, following your passion, which everybody's telling you to do, versus?
Yeah, I think people are saying that less and less.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't necessarily mean that it will take you to what's going to be a fulfilling career choice. And I think of, I have a younger sister who was a very gifted, she's still with us, but she's a very gifted artist. And the struggle that she had, her passion was creating pottery. She hated to sell it. She hated to create what the masses wanted because it stifled her creativity. And I feel like that's an example of, her passion is not what she should be thinking about doing as a career, to generate income. So yeah, I think the concept of follow your passion is becoming more and more scrutinized, I should say, because it's really not necessarily going to take people where they want to get to.
I wonder if it's also easier or different depending on how old you are. Like when you're younger, you know, when you're just trying to figure out things, you don't even know what you don't know yet, you haven't tried anything yet, versus when you're more seasoned and, you know, you've kind of got those years of expertise and experience
and wisdom.
Yeah, hopefully it's wisdom.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. I keep going because I'm formulating another thought.
Well, I'm also curious, you know, here you are, you're getting ready to exit your academic career, teaching career. Why start a business versus join a practice or, you know, do volunteer work or something else? What was it about entrepreneurship that sort of lit your fire?
Idea. I have no idea, other than from my advisory committee and these two other trusted voices. It's like, well, why don't you have all these skills, which I looked at, what do I do well, what do I enjoy doing, And that kind of led into a path of, I didn't want to join a group because I want flexibility in my schedule at this point in time. It's like, I'd love to have
Just like your friend.
Exactly. I want a little more structure. So for example, I would have a dog right now, except I don't have a dog because I don't want the constraint on my ability to just close the door and walk out of my condo and go tutoring. So that's another thing that I do on the side, is tutoring Italian professionals who need to, or they seek to, improve their command of the English language. And so that's something that I do.
Italian?
Un poco.
Okay.
That's not required in the work that I do, but just because of traveling to Italy several times over the last many years, I've picked up some Italian and made it an intentional learning process. But the idea of being an entrepreneur, I just thought, why not? I don't have anything, I have no experience, because keep in mind that I've worked pretty much in bureaucracies all my life. So I worked at UVM Health Network back when it was Medical Center Hospital of Vermont, then Fletcher Allen, and then, and then I stepped away. Big bureaucracy. Then I worked in state government with the Department of Disabilities, Aging, and Independent Living for 10 years. Big bureaucracy within state government. And then UVM, another big bureaucracy. So the idea of being an entrepreneur held a little bit of appeal to me. It scared the daylights out of me because I thought, I've never had to, and my kids laughed a little bit, Mom, you don't have any business experience. And I said, yeah, so
Transferable skills.
transferable skills, and find people who can help you. And that's, that brings me to another realization that I can come to terms with looking back on the last few years, is that I would have hired a business coach from the get-go. But I didn't think I needed to, because I had, as I said earlier, created something from nothing in a couple of, long-standing, higher profile positions. And I thought, what can be the challenge here?
How hard can it be?
Oh my gosh. And, it's just, so I came up with a draft. There's this document or a technique called the lean canvas. And that's, are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
Well, so it's really the basics of a business plan on one page. So you have to be really succinct. And it was actually my son who pointed me in the direction of, Mom, take a look at this.
Is he an entrepreneur?
And figured out what?
Is he an entrepreneur?
Yes, of sorts. And so, but also too, it's just not just for entrepreneurs, but if you're starting a business, this would be a very useful tool. So I filled in the blanks, but I didn't have answers to a few of the questions, and it's because I just wasn't ready to come to terms with, oh my gosh, I need to take care of this, this, and this. So I'll be honest, I kind of stumbled my way along for several months. And, that's the other thing about being an entrepreneur, is that there's no roadmap. And again, coming from the bureaucracies that I've come from, I always had a roadmap. You always had a plan. And with this solopreneurship scene, I had no plan, and there was I wasn't accountable to anybody. So, and there's a lot of time just with me, right? And you don't build networks when you're just with your laptop or reading a book. That's not to dismiss the value of doing the reading what the people who are the gurus in this leadership and career transitions and just business savvy in general. and also drafting one document after the next, or preparing a
And then
blog.
you've got the, yes, do this voice over here, and then the one on the other shoulder saying, no.
Like, what am I doing? What am I doing this for?
Yeah. I want to just go into that a little bit deeper. You know, I think that's a trap that a lot of people fall into. Like, they're good at something, they make a really good product, or they offer a really good service. How hard can it be to start a small business? Because there's lots and lots of small businesses. We see them everywhere, from the nail salon, the car mechanic, whatever, right?
And online has opened up even more doors to those small businesses.
Exactly. But there's no, when you're in corporate, or you're in academia, or you're in, you know, the state government, or government in a bureaucracy, you have a team, a department that does you have the marketing department.
Colleagues.
You have colleagues, you have HR, you have everybody, you know, with their special skill, and suddenly you're stuck into entrepreneurship, and it's like, take this hat off and put another one on. And that for me was really hard. It was a long process, and I'm still learning, you know, this far into my business. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what you said you wish you'd hired a business coach right off the bat. Me too. I would have done that way sooner. I didn't even know business coaches existed. I was like,
people told me. And I did a little Googling, but...
what else would you do different, hindsight being what it is?
What else would I do differently?
Or sooner?
Sooner. No, well, differently and sooner. It's the same. I would have hired a content creator for my website. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I would have done that sooner because I feel like, so I participated in webinars, and what I've come to appreciate in these webinars and reading people's blogs online is that they give you all the gloss, right? They tell you, this is easy, all you have to do is this, this, and this, and I would try and follow their models, and one step in think, well, they didn't explain that, and they didn't explain this, and SEO, how am I going to get traction with SEO? You can get a bajillion different opinions on how to get traction with the Google search engines. So I would have hired a content creator sooner. And the other thing is that I would have created a more sustainable network of colleagues, because what you were just describing about this rich team that you have, whether you like them or you don't like them, they are a team that's always there, keeping guardrails up for whatever the nature of the work is that you're doing, and giving you advice, not feedback. So that's a tough thing to do, and I have to say that for all the words that I read that said you can't build your network just online, you've got to get out and meet people, it's so true. And so I'll give a shout out to BNI because that really was a turning point for me in terms of it was a real aha moment for me. And I'm famous with college students. What was your aha moment of that experience? It really was an aha moment because I felt so energized after just talking with other people. And, you know, the way I'm preaching to the choir here, but the way that the BNI chapter meetings work, for people who aren't familiar with that group, is that every meeting, whoever is there, whether you're a guest or you're one of the group members, you get 1 minute to have the floor. All eyes are on you. You see a big clock ticking to remind you of how much time is there. But it gives you an opportunity to let people know what you're doing, and there's follow-up from that. So I say that's another thing I should have done sooner, is to get out of my little office space in my home to meet people.
I want to bounce back to that a little bit, or bounce off of it. I think what you just said about growing your network in person first, I think especially in Vermont, that's really important, right? Like, we don't trust anybody unless we've talked to them a few times, let alone want to work with them. But I think, you know, especially during COVID, a lot of people thought that if I just show up online, I'm going to grow my business.
And the world will come to me.
Right?
Yes.
And what I have found, I'm also a BNI member, is that it's the opposite. It's forming those relationships, knowing how to talk to people in a room,
Yes.
building those relationships. Then you can take that and put that into your online world
Yeah.
and transfer those skills and build that network. The other way around just really doesn't work. And I think also what we touched upon in terms of structure, like needing the advisory board and whatnot, BNI is, for me, a great way to structure, because I have to show up, I have to get everything I want to say in 60 seconds. That in itself is really hard, and it really helps you hone your messaging and tell people what you're about, what you're doing. Because if somebody says, "What do you do?" and you're like, "Well, last year I was doing blah 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 blah," and you tell
and
a
all
story,
of a sudden your time is up.
yeah. Or they've lost interest, right?
Yeah.
So that's really good. So mentoring, getting a business coach, finding your network. What else would you have done differently? Or what are you doing now?
What am I doing now? I'm putting a lot more energy into my presence on LinkedIn. I am trying to, there's that women's group, the Vermont Womenpreneurs, that the timing of their biz buzz, I love the concept, just has not worked into my schedule yet. For a year of trying to make that work. And so what I've decided, now that they've posted their dates for 2026, I'm going to write those into my day planner, because I think that would be a really great way to have a smaller experience. I mean, in any profession, no matter what you do, there's usually a large gathering of like-minded people that will just help inspire you, if nothing else.
And the energy. Just the energy itself.
I know.
Yeah. It's a great group. I love that group.
Yeah, so it would be, was there anything else I was thinking? Oh, there's one other thing. And I'm doing this, but it's not easy. And that is showing up every day. And as an entrepreneur, I mean, if you have a job with a bureaucracy, you have to show up every day, right? Well, there's nobody telling you have to show up when you are an entrepreneur or a solopreneur.
Like your pay is going to get docked today.
No, because you're working for no pay, right?
Yeah.
Unless you've taken out a business loan, which I did not. And had I done that to get me started, I would have had to write a business plan, but I didn't. And so there are days when I have wasted a lot of time, to be perfectly honest with you. I haven't started the day with an agenda. And now I'm trying to, at the end of the day, identify what it is. I mean, this is not rocket science, and it's what I have guided people to do. Like, I'm not.
But when it's you
exactly,
doing it, it's like the cobbler's children's shoes, right? I think I heard something early in my business trajectory that really stuck. It's, all these steps to entrepreneurship, they're simple, but they're not easy. Simple does not equal easy. And I think that's very true. We know the steps. Show up online, do the thing, right? But it's hard.
It is
especially
hard.
when you don't want to do it, or you're not feeling inspired, or you're like, I'd rather do anything but. I think that the other thing that I heard was, and now I can't remember what it was, so we'll get back to that.
That's okay, because I've forgotten a couple of things also. Yeah, so it was interesting because just this week, in the past couple of days, I've had a presence online because of the workshop that I'm doing tomorrow, and then this upcoming 3-day intensive that I'm holding in early December and that's intended to walk people through the 5 steps of how are you going to get from, I'm not sure what I want to do, to, oh, now I have a vision, and now I can start taking active steps to really pursue that particular line of work. Is that, Liisa, you're destroying my train of thought here.
Well, good, because I remembered what I was going to say, but keep going.
Okay, no, you go ahead.
It was just going to be that what's really made a difference for me, other than the simple is not easy, is create first, consume second. And that's one of the things that I get really bogged down in as an entrepreneur is like get up and start consuming social media, right? Like
okay.
starting to check my email,
Yeah.
do this and that, and then it just my creativity
Yeah.
goes away, and then I'm exhausted by
Yeah.
all the stuff that I see out there.
Yeah.
If you create first, whether it's just writing,
That's a really good
then
little
consume.
maxim, create first and then consume. And you know, that's a whole nother aspect of, I had to control that same kind of concept when I was starting with this whole entrepreneurship, is that I was so hungry to be reading what all of the leaders in the career change and career transition space were writing about, whether it was LinkedIn or their blogs or whatever, is that I was using that time. For me, my best thinking, my clearest thinking, my most productive time of day is 6 o'clock in the morning while I'm having a cup of coffee, no distractions.
House is quiet.
House is quiet. And I had to, I made a pact with myself probably a year and a half ago that I would not check my text messages, I wouldn't check the news on, I wouldn't check email until after I had finished that 45 minutes of really high quality, high productivity time. The other thing I did is, as you're going through your professional life, we all have to keep up with, what's happening in the field. And in a credentialed profession like nutrition, you have to earn so many continuing education credits in order to maintain your registration status as a registered dietitian nutritionist. And so you always created time to read journal articles. Well, when I was done teaching, I kind of let go of that. And I had a wake-up call, another aha moment along the way, which is I need to figure out how to get back into reading professional content that matters. And so typically what I'm doing now is I'm reading from a book, like I'm a book person, not
physical,
an
not a
e-book
Kindle.
person. And I will sit and I'll read, and the creating part is that as I'm reading, I have a notebook right next to me and I'm jotting down ideas about the
There's something to be said by writing by hand too, right? Like
well, and we
more
think
comes out.
differently.
Yeah.
We know that
We really
now.
do. We really
Yeah.
do. I love that. Thank you, Amy, for coming and
Are we
chatting
done?
with me. Yes, we are at time. We could keep talking forever.
I know, this has been fun.
It has been fun. I think there's like lots more conversations going on in here. But thank you for coming on. I wish you the best of luck in your business and your workshop tomorrow. And if you want to learn how to work with Amy or learn more about her, or you're going through a career transition and you don't know what to do next, her website is right here, yourcareertransitioncoaching.com. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Liisa.
See you next time. Good.